Yes. All right. We are back for another Purpose, Profits, and Pixie Dust podcast. My name is Lindsay Dollinger, and I am super excited to be here today with Kendall SummerHawk, who is a 9-time Stevie award-winning coach, a money feminist, which I just love that title. I saw that and I was like, okay, yes. And the creative founder of the Money Coach School for Women Entrepreneurs. She has over 22 years of success running a 7-figure business, and her vision is to create a world where women hold genuine money power, because money is a choice. Money is freedom, and the world changes when women have more money. So, Kendall, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here, Lindsay. I'm super excited to talk with you, particularly when I heard who your audience is. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to be here.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your story, because I feel like most people don't just wake up and they're like, I'm going to be a money feminist and a money coach and teach all the things. So how did you come to do what you do?
Let's see. So first of all, I actually have been fascinated by money since I was a little girl. And I owe so much of that to my mom. And, at the time when I was a little girl, everybody else's mother didn't work. They stayed home, they made cookies, they wore an apron, they did those kinds of things. And that's great. That was not my mom. My mother owned her own business. She was very successful as a hairdresser. She worked since I was like 6 years old. So I got to see the, day to day, the experience of having a woman being empowered with money. She made her own money. She did not have a big salon. She just worked for herself, but she was booked out 6 and 8 weeks in advance. Everybody in my town of Tucson knew her, and, and she was cutting edge, no pun intended. But I got to see her, working with money and taking client appointments and doing those kinds of things. And at the time, women didn't pay with credit cards because women could not have credit cards without a man's approval. So it was a cash and a check business. So she would, quote unquote, do her books once a week, and I would help her do that. I'm this little girl, and we're just counting money. I mean, literally like counting money, making deposit slips. So I really got exposure to that. And I do think that some of this is just nature. I just am fascinated by money. And so then, fast forward a number of decades, I grew up with, I would say middle to upper middle class, but then as a young adult in my 20s and 30s, that was not the case. I wasn't just broke, I was poor. I mean, really, like food scarcity and just a lot of, impoverished way of living. And, it's just a factor of being young and not knowing, and I was married to a professional musician, and I was a professional waitress. So together we made $75 a day, and, living in San Diego. So therein lies the reason for a lot of poverty. But I was so wanted to work for myself, because that's what my mother always told myself and my brother. She said, go be creative, go work for yourself. I mean, that is the message that we got imprinted with over and over and over again. I love that. Yeah, it was, and I grew up in Tucson. It's really hot. So we're like, we're bored. It's hot. She's like, go read a book or go make something. Like there was no whining allowed. Yes. Go read a book, go make something.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm, skipping along here, but I ended up working in healthcare for 13 years in the information systems area. And yet I always wanted to work for myself. And I know your audience is primarily people who want to work for themselves, even though they're not there yet, correct? Yeah, so that's why I was so excited to be here. And so I remember having, and I only had a 2-year degree, I didn't have college education. So by the way, everybody listening, I've made nearly $30 million since 2008 without a college degree. This absolutely can be done.
Yeah, it's possible.
And I remember thinking, and I realize I'm deviating from your question slightly, but I remember, like wanting to work for myself and wanting to work for myself, but had no idea what that would look like. Like, what could I do to make money? And I would look in the newspaper and for businesses for sale. I mean, weird businesses that I would be completely unsuited for. But, and what happened was I ended up investing in a 9-month training that was all personal growth. And it was like $3,800, which at the time I was making like $55,000 a year. So that was a big investment.
Yeah.
And it was 3 days, once a month in person for 9 months. And I was in this training, and during the lunch break, I heard this woman talking, and this was in 1998, I think, 1999, somewhere around there. And this woman was talking to somebody else, and she was talking about giving teleclasses, and she was a coach. And I'd never heard of any of this. And I couldn't help overhearing it. So I walked up, I said, I'm so sorry. I could not help eavesdropping. Are you telling me that you get on the phone and you work with people on the phone and they pay you to do that, or you give these free classes? And she looked at me like I had 3 heads.
Like you're crazy.
Yeah. And
She's
she said, yeah. And I said, oh my God, sign me up. So I just loved the idea of that.
Yeah.
And I ended up selling my house, moving back to my hometown of Tucson. I had this little bitty nest egg from the sale of my house, and I was going to start my own business. And I failed miserably the first year. I call it the year of fear and tears. It was terrifying. I needed to get divorced for the second time. I was burning through my savings. I only had 1 horse at the time and boarded out, which is, expensive. And then, and I just wasn't willing at that moment to say I'm a coach. I just didn't do that until finally one day I was up against it. I mean, really up against a wall. And I pulled out, I thought, oh my God, I'm like out of money here. And I'm going to have to go get a job. Yeah. And so I printed out my resume, pulled up my resume, printed it out to update it, because that's what you do when you're going to go get a job. And I felt like somebody had kicked me in the stomach. I felt like I was going to throw up. I felt like the biggest failure imaginable. And I thought, I just can't do this. I cannot do this. So I shredded my resume. I went to my computer. I deleted my resume file. Like I erased all that. Literally, there was no going back.
Gosh. Yeah.
And this, I hadn't read Think and Grow Rich and Burn Your Ships. I didn't know any of that. This was just intuitive. This is what I did. And I decided shortly thereafter to get divorced, which is what needed to happen. But also I decided to be a coach. And I woke up one day and I said out loud, literally, I said, get a grip, girl. You love this. And the rest is history. So, but as far as the money part goes, I am just eternally fascinated by the topic of money, and in particular, women and money and our relationship with money. So we can talk more about that here.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you always coach on money? Was that like your original niche of coaching?
Yeah. Yes and no. No, in that I didn't come out as a money coach. No. I mean, so I decided I was going to help people build their businesses and make more money, which is interesting since I was having a failing business at the time. So any of you who worry about fraud factor, don't worry about it. But where I started actually was helping people with their pricing. And I just kind of, it's very much, it's like that wonderful commencement speech. I'm totally blanking out. It's terrible. The founder of Apple Computers, Steve Jobs. He said, he took a calligraphy class and that led to creating fonts on the Apple Mac. It's like you don't, all the dots don't connect until you're down the road. And that's what happened. So I was working with people I thought I can help them with their pricing and their messaging. And along with pricing is how they put together their services. So I wasn't working with other coaches. I was working with, I worked with an attorney. I worked with, I don't remember the different niches, lots of different niches, professional chefs, professional organizers, anybody I could have a conversation with. And, one thing leads to another, but it always was revolving around making money. And then I really started to, I've always been good with money. I've always been a saver. I've always been very clever with money. And our retirement is fully funded, but I'm not a big time investor. Like I don't know anything about the stock market or anything like that. But so I'm not like that. But at one point I thought about being an accountant, which to me, I'm glad I didn't go into it. It would not have suited my personality, but there's always been this fascination with money. So the coaching always did revolve around making money, because a woman's life changes when she has money. And what is statistically proven, when women have money, the things that they do with it are pretty remarkable. They feed their children, they put shoes on their feet, they get them into better education. The world, like you said in my intro, the world really does change for the better when women have money. Yeah,
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about pricing. What are some of the common, I don't know if I'm going to say errors, but maybe the common
mistakes,
problems, that you saw women making with their pricing?
Yeah, I still see, I've been in business 23 years-ish, I think, I forget. But they make the same mistakes today as they did 23 years ago. I think, and especially for your audience of women who are still working in jobs, there's a couple of extra mistakes to avoid. So one is pricing by the hour. And by the way, I do coach a lot of coaches, but this applies no matter what kind of service-based business you have. And I believe service-based businesses, truly, there's an unlimited amount of money that you can make in a service-based business. I mean, the amount of money, I'm sitting here as a long time ago, but former waitress with a 2-year degree, making millions and millions of dollars. And so I think one mistake is charging by the hour. That's an absolute no-no for a lot of reasons we can go into, but like you just don't want to do it. You always want to do packages instead. And sure, you want to add up like how much time do you think you're going to put into that service, but you don't just take the amount of time times how much you want to make per hour, add it up and say, oh, that's my package price. Oh, no. Like if your amount of time, just to quickly run some numbers, like let's say, and I'm going to completely make this up. Let's say that you're going to do something and it's 5 hours and you want to make $100 an hour. So that's $500. That's a package that could be worth $3,000, $5,000, $8,000, $15,000. You have to stop looking at yourself. I don't think women intend to be self-focused, but when they start their own business, they get very self-focused. Like they make it all about them. It's not about you. You got to get over yourself. You need to look at the result. And I'm going to give you a very big tip here. Everyone talks about looking at results, but I'm going to give you an extra tip on this. So you need to look at the result that your service is going to produce for somebody. Like what's that end result for them? What's going to be different for them? What problem are they solving or what are they able to achieve? But here's the kicker. Here's where it gets really fascinating that nobody else teaches but me is that, like, let's say you're going to do a 3-month service. I'm going to make this up here as an example. At the end, you don't look at the result at the end of 3 months. I mean, you can, that's fine, but you don't stop there. You look at the result then 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. And yeah, you're kind of having to imagine and visualize, because you may not know exactly. But when you start to train your brain to look that way, and you look at the result that might produce $100,000 for somebody 2 years down the road, are you going to charge $500? I don't think so. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
So when you do that, it starts to create an opportunity, an opening for a woman to feel really good about her pricing and to say, yeah, I'm not charging $500. Are you kidding me? I'm going to charge $5,000 or $10,000. And I'm going to let my prospective clients know this could be worth $100,000 for you. And so it starts to become a no-brainer decision for your client to sign up with you. But also it creates a feeling of comfort and value and acceptability for a woman to step into charging better rates.
Oh my gosh. So you're saying that. I have heard that, and I don't remember where, by saying like charge for the transformation that person is going to get, and then be able to, like, for example, I'm a business coach. So, but I've never priced that way. But like, as you're talking, I'm like, I could be charging so much more because if people have, like, for example, my mastermind, my 6-month mastermind, at the end of it, you could have a business that brings in 6-7 figures very easily if you apply the methods and if you put in the work.
Yeah.
And then when I'm hearing these price objections, it's so easy to get in our own heads about, well, I'm like, okay, like maybe I should make it cheaper. I know. So hearing you talk,
you can't do that.
Okay, I need her in my ear as I'm starting to think, about my pricing. I love that.
One of the things I always say is don't climb into someone else's wallet. Don't do that. Don't climb into their wallet. Don't do that. You first of all, it's none of your business. It's not your business. It's not your place. You have no idea what someone's financial resources are. And most importantly, you have no idea. I'm such a big believer in that, in allowing someone, like, maybe it's an easy investment for them. Maybe it's not. Maybe they have to sell some things. Maybe they have to save for a while. Don't rob them of that opportunity. That's going to make a fantastic client, by the way. When they have, a lot of times when somebody has to work a little bit to make that investment, they make a great client. Like, they are all in. So don't climb into their wallet. And I think that the other thing too, particularly for people coming out of a JOB, is, and I was like this the first year I started my business, I just wanted to make as much as my job had paid. $55,000. I want to make $55,000. I didn't have concept. I had no concept of making $100,000. Like it wasn't a year. It was not in my mind at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what and you know, this was like 1999 and 2000. So, you know, I know I'm going to sound like 180 years old, but clearly I'm not. But you know, the internet was around, but there was no social media, so we didn't see all of this opportunity. And so you really I'm a big believer, and you have to know yourself. You know, some of us, and I've often been this way, love to set a big goal. Like I set the goal to be $1 million business owner when I was making about 100,000. And some of us can do that and set that goal and live with that stretch and carry the energy of that for a period of time. And other people can't, and that's okay. So you can go into what I call stair stepping, which is incremental increases with your income and with your pricing as well. But for me at that time, when I set that goal, I just wanted to be $1 million business owner. I didn't know anybody who did that. Certainly didn't know any women. And I just decided that that's what I wanted to be. And it took me 2 years to do that. It was a tough 2 years. I worked really hard and I learned a lot, but it took me 2 years to go from 100,000 a year, where I had been at for 3 years in a row, which was amazing money. But by the third year in a row, I was like, yeah, this is the same amount of money. So, you know, stuck is stuck at any dollar.
Right.
I just decided, and like I said, it wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to hang my head and cry that I couldn't do it. And I thought, no, I picked my head back up and I said, I'm going to be $1 million business owner.
Okay, I want to dive into that. But before we get there, when you were talking about the stair steps, I have heard this analogy from several different people about like your thermostat, what your thermostat is set at. Have you heard that before?
That's a different thing. Like, yeah,
it's a different thing, but same, you can apply it to this as well. What are some tactics that we can use to raise that thermostat or to incrementally go step by step for making it more believable for us that is possible?
Yeah. So one of the things, and I call it your money speedometer, and we won't get into the calculation here today, but you can, you know, people talk about the thermostat all the time, but they don't tell you what that number is. And it's actually very simple. I can just give you the formula for it that I created. If you look at how much money month by month you've brought in, just gross income or gross salary, so not after taxes or expenses, the gross. If you look at that month by month for the last 12 months, and you choose the 5 highest months, choose out the 5 highest months, add them up, and then divide by 5. What that's going to give you is a high average. That's where your money speedometer, your money thermostat is set to currently.
Okay, so how can we stretch it and get to the next level?
You pick a new number. I mean, at the end of the day, you just pick a new number.
You just pick. Okay.
You just pick a new number. And typically what I've seen, because, you know, I've coached thousands of women on money and their pricing at this point, you can typically go 25, 30%, typically without triggering, with getting outside your comfort zone, but not triggering the freak out zone. You know?
Okay, 25 to 30%. I love that. I love the tactical number. So I'm like, okay, give me the equation. We're gonna go. Okay, so what did you do then? Because like 100,000 to $1 million business, like that's a pretty big jump in a year or two. Like
it took 2 years. The first year I went from 100,000 to 564,000 in 1 year, and then the next year did a full $1 million in 1 year. So what I did is 2 things. And by the way, small list. No social media at the time. You know, this was, I broke $1 million for the first time in 2008. So what I did was 2 things. Number 1 is I doubled down on having high-end offers, what's now called high ticket. Back then, high ticket wasn't a phrase people were using. I called it platinum, premium, whatever. But I was already starting to do it, and I absolutely adore high ticket. I just think it's amazing for so many reasons. So I doubled down, and meaning that I ran, like at any point in time, I was running 2 and 3 platinum groups at any one time. The second, and the pricing stayed about the same. It was, the basic platinum was $10,000 for a year-long program. Very common pricing these days, actually. The higher level ones were more. I had like a platinum plus. Not very creative with the titles, but it didn't need to be.
It did the work.
Yeah. And the second thing that I did is I increased the number of people. And so in the past, I had been running platinum at 12 people. The way I had it set up, I was convinced 12 was my max. 12 was my max. And so that became kind of a chafing point because I was chafing at that because it was limiting. And so I thought, okay, well, if I make a few changes, I can up it to 18 people. So I did a group like that. And then it's like, okay, if I make a few more changes, I can get 35 people. I can handle 35 people, which I did. And then I went, okay, wait a second here. What if I were to have 100 people? Because I was still stretching, really, coming up against restrictions with these numbers. And so I hired coaches. I made a few changes and increased it. So when I was running large group programs, which I don't do anymore because I focus on certification, we typically always had between 180, 190, maybe 200 people in those groups. We ran two big workshops a year and sold coaching from this stage. I got really good at that. And then we did other smaller. So I was doing like 6 workshops a year and always, delivering and selling from the stage. So I had a workshop model, which I stopped doing in 2017. Thank God, before the pandemic.
Yeah. I was going to say that would have put it. But I feel like that model is slowly creeping back into popularity again.
It's a great model. It has its pros and cons like any model. It's a great model,
right?
And you can emulate it. You can do it in a very small capacity, very small. I made my first $120,000 like literally overnight by doing a small workshop and selling, 12 people into a $10,000 person program. So you can start small. So everybody hearing this, you don't say, well, one day I'll be there. You say, no, I'm going to take these ideas and I can scale them back and start where I start. Maybe you have a workshop, if that's what you like, or workshops, you can have it with 5 people. You can have a workshop with 5 people and sell 3 into high-end coaching. That's a great payday. That's a great payday.
Now, your workshops, when you ran them, I'm going to guiltily pick your brain because I want to do more in-person events. I just came back from one that was in Arizona. That was about, I think, 800 people. I loved it, loved the vibe. Obviously, I'm not planning on something that big for my first, in-person event that I do. But your workshops, I'm assuming you charged an entry fee, or were they free workshops? I feel like free workshops would be harder to convert, but I could.
That's actually not what I did. Okay. I did. The very first one was a little more complicated of a strategy that worked really well. I sold online. I sold people into I think it was 4-month program, and it was $3,200. And it had a particular start date, and it kicked off with a 3-day in-person workshop. And I marketed like hell to get everybody to come to that workshop. And so I had 50 people. So which is still a good sized number. And of those 50 people, that's when I made my first platinum program offer, and they got to credit their initial investment. So that was fine. Got to credit it towards the higher end thing, and they still got the lower end thing. So that's how I did the very first one. But after that, I did a free ticket strategy for years where I would sell, you don't just give away free tickets, but I would sell a training program for like $297. I would sell 2 or 3 of those a year. And we would get 200 or 300 people buying that. And it included a free ticket, but they had to pay. I'm trying to remember all the detail. They would have to put down, I played with it, like a $97 deposit, I think, because events are a little tricky because you're on the hook for the hotel. So for the hotel room block, food and beverage, we ended up getting a sponsorship with the Ritz-Carlton. So they covered 50% of our food and beverage. So, because we went to high end. Yeah. So I'm always looking how to mitigate risk. But anyway, so we would ask for a small deposit, and they could bring a friend for $47. And I'll tell you something. Those bring a friend people. I had, my diamond programs at the time, a diamond group was on a full pay, like $55,000 for the year. I had several diamonds come in.
From the bring a friend.
From the bring a friend. Wow. They were a bring a friend ticket.
Wow. That is awesome. I was just sharing with one of my clients last night on our mastermind call. about a bring a friend strategy for her. She's launching a small group program, and I have seen it. And I told her that's how I got into my very first mastermind, actually, was
See?
my sister and I signed up Bring a Friend for her membership the year before. And so I'm like, she didn't make any money off of me really that year. But then I signed up for her
There you go.
5-figure mastermind because I saw she was legit and, you know, nurtured me over that year. So I'm like, you never know.
You not only do you never know, you always know somebody's going to convert. I mean, actually, I think that's true. And we initially started the Bring a Friend because we wanted the women to bring their spouses. That's what we wanted, because we knew that if the spouse could be on board, and, you know, because it's weird when you're at a workshop and you're excited and you're calling your spouse on the phone saying, oh, I want to join this thing. And they're like, are you out of your mind? And so, and so we knew if we could get the spouse in the room, that it would just help ease the whole conversation. And because then they were there, they could see that we're legitimate. Mine is a family owned business. So who works with me? I have a couple of non-blood members who've been with me a long time, but my mother, my brother, and my husband all work with me in the business. And then I had an event planner at the time. And so, you know, they, you know, to see that we are so, like, I'm the most trustworthy person on the planet. So people, once they experience us, they see that that's true. And so that was where the Bring a Friend originated, was bring your partner, bring your spouse, and you can bring a friend. But then it turned out the Bring a Friend thing was pretty lucrative. So
did you charge for the spouse too? Or was
they were on the Bring a Friend ticket. It was $47. Okay. And we provided lunches. I mean, it was a big deal. But then, there's a lot of little strategies that go into the event model. And that leads me to something else I want to say that's so important, is that you have to be the guardian of your dream. And I think this is true no matter what, and especially if you're still in a job. Because if you start talking to coworkers or something about how, you know, if you want to be a coach, which I think coaching is just like, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here with you, Lindsay, but, you know, coaching is an amazing occupation for a woman to have. I mean, we are tailor-made for this. It is so good for us, and we can make so much money, and we can do so much good and help so many people. But if you start talking to people out, quote unquote, in the real world, how much you can make, they're going to think you're crazy pants. And so, and then you get other people's thoughts and feelings and projections and their biases, not only about money, but about you coming, you know, being laid on you. So really, I say, be the guardian of your dream, and you do not have to share your dream or your numbers with everybody. Be very particular and careful about that. Only share it with the people who are going to fully support you, truly.
So on that note, and I'm glad you brought up the strategy with the spouse, I hear that from so many women, and in full transparency, I'm not married. So I feel ill-equipped to share my thought, like, well, just tell your husband, you know, like, I'm like, I can't speak for that.
I'm married and I pretty much feel that same way.
Okay. But I'm like, what do you tell your clients?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just curious who come to you.
So
and
what we do, so my mom, who does a lot of the enrolling conversations, she's amazing at it. My mom and my husband do that. And they're amazing. They're truly masterful coaches. And we, you know, we love our clients, and everybody says they love our clients, but our clients feel loved. I mean, they know that's why we have so many repeat clients, and clients that stay with us for years. So, one of the questions that she always asks when this comes up, she will always ask, is your spouse, is your husband an entrepreneur? And because it does make a difference, you know, if the person's spouse is an entrepreneur, then they have more of an understanding and higher risk tolerance. If someone's spouse is not an entrepreneur, it doesn't always mean they don't have risk tolerance, but they tend to be a little more conservative in their thinking. And I like to just ask because I'm not about asking a guy for permission. That's just like not going to happen. And so what I suggest is saying, you know, I'm not going to tell somebody how to have that conversation with their spouse. That's not my business. That's their relationship. I'm not going to tell them to be secretive. We're not, you know, we are totally honest and above board. So it's funny too. I don't have my wedding ring on. I had to go in and get repaired. The problem, so I feel naked. But we usually will ask them, if you're it's similar to about the, you know, a money thing. It's like, assuming your husband is fully on board, is this something you want to, that you want to say yes to? And you're listening for an absolute congruent yes, because a lot of women, and sorry ladies, but this is true. A lot of women hide behind their husband. Oh, I don't think he's going to like it. Are you serious? He's not your dad. This is not your father. You're a grown-up woman. What are you doing here? And so, so I like to separate, assuming they're fully on board, assuming they're neutral or fully on board. Is this something you want to say yes to? Because if they are hesitant at all, the problem is not the spouse. The issue is, are they not believing in themselves? Do they not have time? Are they not seeing what's their potential? It's scary. Leaving a job and starting your own business is scary. There's no doubt about it. It can be downright terrifying. And I think that one of the advantages that people have now that I actually didn't really have so much is that you can start this as a side business. I don't like to say side hustle because I don't like the word hustle, but you can do this as you can do what you want as a side business. You're going to work more, but you can do that and create some security there. We have coaches we certified who never gave up their job, and they just make an extra $5,000 to $15,000 a month doing their coaching. But they have the security and the benefits of that job, and that makes them happy. And that's great.
Right. I love that. Okay. Last thing I want to ask is, speaking of that security financial piece, what advice do you have for the woman who is getting ready to transition from the full-time job to full-time entrepreneurship? Or maybe she has already done it. And maybe she's starting to feel a little bit of like the, oh crap, like missing that security a little bit. What are some of the steps that we can get in place now to build up? Like you started off this conversation by saying like your retirement's all set up, like you have all those pieces set up. So share maybe a little bit about that.
Sure. So to be clear, my retirement wasn't fully funded until 3 years ago. Okay. So I didn't even start on retirement at all until about 10 years ago. Okay. So just to understand, it's never too late. You have time.
I love that.
Yes. You have time. So I think a couple things come to mind. Go high end. Go whatever your service is. You need to create high end offer, and I know people then want to say, well, but I need a less expensive thing so people can try me out and get a sense of it. Maybe not. And if it's yes, like in the coaching space, what we coach our people in certification to do is to create that high end offer, and then as the stair step into that is to do VIP days, to do one-day intensives, which can be anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, whatever. Somewhere, that's a big range, I get it, but somewhere in there. Because when done the way we teach, 2 out of every 3 VIP days will turn into a high-end client. Absolutely. And it's an easier sell. VIP days are extremely easy to sell. I mean, like really easy. You can have 2 conversations with 2 different people and have a VIP day client and get that money in and deliver it next week, and you're good. So, so I think it's having 2 offers, but the lower end offer isn't low end. It's just a stepping stone. So to really think about that. I think that the other thing is to be really mindful not to spend a bunch of money on technology. People get their knickers in a twist about the website and the this and the that. Don't do any of that. It's going to suck up a huge amount of time and energy. And even if you're doing it yourself, more time and energy, or you're paying somebody more time and energy and money. You don't know enough when you're first starting out. Your messaging is going to change like every few months. It's going to change. And so don't get yourself locked in. You can use a Facebook business page and your Instagram and LinkedIn, which depending on who your ideal clients are, LinkedIn, I'm not a LinkedIn expert by any stretch, but LinkedIn can be very, very good. It's a little bit longer. It's a longer haul. You're not going to get on LinkedIn today and have a client tomorrow. But you can have those platforms serve as your website. They have plenty of features there that will work great. Have a professional email address. So even if you don't have the website, have a good email address, not, SuzieQ@123yahoo.com. Don't do that. So I think so really be mindful to keep expenses low. You really want to keep your expenses low. Yeah, you're going to probably go through some lean times. There's a lot of up and down, but that's okay. Focus on, really, if you make an offer every single day, think about this. If you make an offer every single day, what's going to happen? Number one, you're going to get good at making offers. You're going to learn what works, what doesn't work. You're going to work on your messaging. You're just going to start to find yourself, because it's a huge identity shift to shift from a job to being an entrepreneur, a woman working for herself. That's a huge identity shift there. But also just who you are as a professional. It takes some time to work out, what you say you do, and what, where your energy and enthusiasm is, and what people relate to. So I would say make an offer every single day and do it early in the morning. It's like eating your Wheaties, eat your Wheaties, make an offer.
Get it done.
Eat your protein.
Frog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read the book, Eat That Frog?
I haven't. I'm a vegetarian, so it grosses me out. But anyway.
Same.
But I get the idea. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I feel like we could dive into so many things. Like we could still keep talking forever.
That's why I was so excited about you, what you do. I was really excited.
Yeah, and like you said, nothing bad happens when women have more money. So
only good. Lots and lots of good.
Yeah. And we feel guilty about it. And I'm like, we got to change this narrative. We've got to change this narrative. I mean, even one of the things that I actually recorded a podcast. It'll come out before this one airs, so I guess I shouldn't say it's coming out because it's already. But anyway, I actually was questioning my pricing because someone that I really wanted to work with was like, it's not in the cards financially, blah blah blah. And I follow her online, and then she was posting that she was going to the movies with her friends, and it's like you had pointed out in the beginning, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then we need to change the narrative of like, it's not a priority for me. It's not actually, I don't find the value in it. Like there's other things. It's not, you can't afford it, because I really feel strongly, like you said, when we started, if it's important to you,
you will find a way.
You'll find a way. And that's how
I always tell people,
go
in your garage or attic and sell some stuff on eBay. I mean, I'm not kidding about it. When I went to computer school in my early 20s to get out of being a career waitress, and the tuition was like $4,800, which we made $15,000 together in a year. That was a huge amount of money.
Right.
And I was going to go to the school full time, so I wasn't going to work. So we moved into a van. We bought a van and moved into a van and lived in a van for 6 months. And it was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life, or I should say humbling. But we lived in a van to save money so that I could go to computer school and everything. Like I went to be a computer programmer. Anyway, that's a different story. It's not important. I got a 4.0 and I got 3 job offers. I ended up working at all 3 places actually within a 2-year time period. But I was mediocre as a programmer. But anyway, but the point is, it was a stepping stone, right? It's like Steve Jobs taking that calligraphy class. So when somebody says I don't have the money, I'm like, I don't buy it. I lived in a freaking van. Are you kidding me? I lived off our employee meal at the restaurant I worked at. So So I think it's about being honest.
It is. And it's like, you don't have to be honest with me, but at least I want to make sure you're being honest with yourself. Like I said, rewording that or something, or, well, anyway.
But it's also about when you're having a discovery session, it's like, how important, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being off the charts and 1 being barely, how important is this to you? If 6 months from now you find yourself in this same place, how are you going to feel about yourself? And those are not questions to manipulate somebody into a sale. There's a reason why we have almost a 0 refund on my courses, and in certification, we just don't it just doesn't happen, because we are so honest and upfront in our enrolling system. But the thing is, so those questions are asked to understand, are you serious? Are you committed to yourself? Are you committed to yourself? Because if you're not, that's fine, but don't BS me.
Yeah. Ooh, I could give you all the stats. I love it. All right, Kendall, how can everyone find you? And I will stick all of this in the show notes as well. How can people work with you if they decide like, hey, I really want to work with her to move my business, my money, my finances forward? What does that look like right now?
Yeah. We have several different offers. So free ways. So I have my podcast, The Money Coach School podcast.com. So you can go listen to that. It's like 15, 20 minutes per episode. So the Money Coach School podcast.com. I just started it last October. In fact, this week is episode 50. So I'm so excited.
Congratulations.
You know what a milestone it is, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. I think, we focus on certification. So I have on certification. So you can go to KendallSummerHawk.com, click on the certification tab there and we have 3 different certification opportunities there. And then I have a mastermind called Secret Energy of Money. That's very special. That is not certification, but it's where we coach. It's a small group environment, lots of attention with me and private. We always include private coaching with Coach Richard and Coach Kailash. They're amazing. And we're coaching all on money and you and your relationship with money and the concept of overflow and your pricing and all different ways of working with money, all my little tips and tricks and hacks and your money values and beliefs. And it is truly a transformational mastermind. So you can check that out at secretenergyofmoney.com.
Awesome. And social media, where can we find you? Where do you hang out?
I sort of don't hang out at all on social. I have to be honest with you. I hang out with my horses. But on social, I am on social. It's Instagram is at Kendall SummerHawk.
Okay, awesome. Well, if you were listening to this, and you obviously are if you were hearing this part, screenshot this, share it in your Instagram stories, and tag both of us so we know that you listened and we can chat with you. And thank you so much, Kendall. I am looking forward to hearing how this conversation just in general transforms the mindset of the women listening. So thank you.
Pleasure to be here.